How we doing? Jimmy Butler's kiddin'.
Oh man, chat. Oh man. You know, last time I was on stream, one of my
How we doing? Keontae Gatewood.
one of our viewers was like, "Yo, you good, bro? Like, you okay?" Um, I think that communicated to me, and just in general as a means of practice, when I want to talk about these things, I can't just yell about them all the time and use expletives and whatnot. If I want to bring this out of the stream world, I need to practice greater patience and restraint and a cooler head. So we're gonna try that today
How we doing?
without
Colton.
losing the passion. Critically so, right? That's important. Anyway, so this is the World Economic Forum. It happened like 2 months ago. A lot of people talked about watching it, but like, let's go to the page. And like, there are other places that covered it, but like, if you go on the World Economics Forum's YouTube page, I
How
mean,
we doing?
you
Chase
guys can't really
Gagnon.
see these views. It's kind of far, but I'll go through 1.2K views, 1.9K views, 1.1K. This one had big numbers,
How we doing?
966K,
Michael.
almost a million. But that's an aberration. A lot of these don't get into that sphere, right? The more celebrity folks who had like
How we
these grand
doing? Tech
speeches
God sleeps.
got some attention, but a lot of the issues did not get attention from the general public. 1.9K, 2K, 16K,
Chase Gagnon says
6.2K.
yo.
What's up, Chase? 5.3K. I say this to say what is happening in this space is critically important to how the elites envision the future of the world. And so it's critically important that everyday people are tuned in. Like, there's not like this should have more views than the fucking Super Bowl. See, there I go again. This should have more views than the Super Bowl. This should have more views than the MLB championship, the NBA championship, but it doesn't. It doesn't even have more views than your average TikTok of people screwing around. And this decides our very future. It decides, or like that's
How we
that's
doing?
that's no
Coach.
exaggeration. That's simply the matter. That's just what's happening. That's
Coach
just
says
what's
what's up, brother?
happening. What's
Chase
up,
Gagnon
coach?
says I don't be dissing March Madness.
Now I'm dissing March Madness, bro. This is critically important to the future of the world, and no one is paying attention. No one is paying attention. That's not me being hyperbolic. That's not me trying to be like doom and gloom. That's literally what's happening. Okay. I have a couple of videos queued up that I think, um, and it's going to require you pay attention, folks.
How
It's
we
going to
doing?
require you pay
Ty.
attention. I know the app isn't geared for that. I know the app is geared for scrolling past dumbass videos all day, but it's going to require you pay attention. This is the most important things in our lives in terms of our future. It just is. It just is. These are the most powerful people in the world. Let's go through some of these thumbnails. This is Mark Carney, the leader of Canada, the political representative, the political premier of Canada. Okay, who else is here? This is Alex. What's his name? Karp, the CEO of Palantir, one of the most leading AI companies in terms of military usage of AI. Okay, who else is on here? Scott Bensent, U.S. Secretary of the Treasury. The U.S. is the economic foothold of the world. So this guy is like the most important person in
How we
terms of
doing?
U.S.
Spice God Dizzy.
political economy. These people are dictating the world. The president, Emmanuel Macron, the president of France. Who else? Who else is on here? The vice prime minister of China. Okay. you need to listen. You need to listen to what these people are talking about. We all need to listen. I know it's not sexy. I know there are no sparks and fireworks and rainbows. You need to listen. I'm sorry that it's boring. I can't make it more exciting. I can't make it more exciting. You need to listen. You need to pay attention. All right. The first video I have up here is of Alex Karp, the CEO of Palantir. I think this one is interesting because he talks about AI usage in war and tries to spin it as how it's going to be beneficial for the general public. Nonsense. It's going to make these governments, who, again, let's remember the purpose that governments serve.
The whole video?
We're not going to watch the whole thing. No, I'm going to go through bits and pieces of it. I haven't watched the whole thing myself, so that's going to make it a bit tough, but I got like 16 in. I'm going to go through bits and pieces of it, and then we can talk about the implications of what he's talking about. Though we could watch the whole video. I mean, I stream here for like 8 hours. If we add up all these clips, it doesn't even come up to like 3. Anyway, back to me summing up what he's talking about. He's saying using AI in these different war zones and conflict zones is going to increase business efficiency, increase civil liberties, and everyone should be happy about this. That's BS. Of course, we know it's BS because the goal of corporations is not to increase civil liberties, is to increase wealth and power for their shareholders, who are the elites of the world. Okay? All right. We're all clear on that. Like, that shouldn't be. We should all know that. All right. Let's start from the beginning here. This is like an intro. So this other guy here, this is the CEO of BlackRock. This is the CEO of BlackRock. Yes, the BlackRock. The BlackRock. This guy runs BlackRock. All right. At least he's forward-facing person. He doesn't run BlackRock. The shareholders run BlackRock.
We are talking about it that it has the potential to grow capacity, to modernize industries, expand opportunity.
User
It also will
009875421
transform
says, why
how
is
we
BlackRock
work
so
and where
important?
we work and how we work.
BlackRock is so important because they own a lot of enterprise in America and around the world.
Coach says
They are a multinational conglomerate. So one second, let's just monitor this volume. Coach, let me know if that's better.
Are governments prepared for that real transformation of a society? So we need to make
That
sure
should be good,
as
right?
it deploys in a way that empowers people.
Coach says nah.
What the hell?
User
empowers
009875421
institutions
says
and
good
builds a
volume.
more resilient global economy.
Yeah, I mean, on my end, it's saying it's like
Few leaders
going above 100. I mean, when I'm talking to you in
truly
here.
at this intersection.
Okay.
Though. I am.
All right.
User 009875421 says that's good.
BlackRock owns a ton of companies, and not just that, but they have ownership in a ton of companies. Some might be like 10%, 15%. So they are sort of this amorphous monopoly where, like, if you take like, Walmart can be thought of as a monopoly, but they're kind of like this one entity. BlackRock is a monopoly that's like made of various corporate bodies. That's what makes them so dangerous, because they have their hands everywhere. They're everywhere in every industry, in every nation, everywhere. That's why they're so important. Now, who are the people who control such
Coach
an
says
institution?
Not to mention all the single-family homes they have that make it impossible to buy.
Yeah, they have a lot of
009875421 says, what services do they provide?
they don't provide services. They just own things. They own things. They don't provide. This isn't like some mom and pop shop. They don't provide services. They own things. If there's a service that they provide is generating wealth for their shareholders, that's the service. They provide that service.
009875421 says,
How do they have capital? Shareholders, People give them money to buy things as investment assets. So stakes in these various companies are investment assets. The real estate are investment assets. That's how it works.
User 0098754221
Does that make sense?
says sure.
Right? Shareholders give money to BlackRock. BlackRock takes that money, buys things. As these things gain value, the shareholders get money back in interest and capital gains, which are not taxed. Right? Okay. That's BlackRock. This is the CEO of BlackRock. I don't know his name. Who cares?
I'm
User
certainly not that leader. But in that
0098754221
intersection
says yes,
of
that makes
technology,
sense.
national security,
Keontae Gatewood
and the
says
real
asset
economy,
managers.
and the way Alex Karp is.
That's what they do.
As co-founder and CEO of Palantir, Alex has close Larry.
It doesn't matter.
So I'm very intimately
With that introduction,
been public now 26 years. So
you have in America, and I would say also in Europe, historically,
How are we doing? UG Itadori.
industrial development and military technology were obviously co-linked. And as a generalization, but more true than not, you developed a product for the military that then was dual functioned and raised.
Okay. I think this part is important. So there comes a time where knowledge that was once hidden sort of is pulled into the public sphere by change makers, and
How are we doing? See,
the elites cannot sort of help but to try and, like, it doesn't make sense for them to try and hide it anymore. So over here, he's saying, oh yeah, so the way that
CT
technology
says, "What's
was
up, bro? What's
developed
this?"
in the past, this is the World Economic Forum. It's a conversation between the CEO of Palantir and the CEO of BlackRock. So yeah, in the past, the way technologies were developed is that the government will invest in research and development and produce particular technologies for the sake of war. Once that technology was no longer sort of state of the art, they would give it to a corporation, and that corporation would then use it for sort of commercial products. Okay. Now what we do now, and people, like the general public, didn't know this back then, but
user
at this point, most people know this.
0098754221 says consumer goods.
They use it for consumer goods. Now this is like common knowledge, but like in like the 60s and the 50s, people didn't know this. The only reason people know this now,
CEOs blazing each other.
it's not gonna just be two. He already did that in the part that I skipped. They like jerk each other off. And we don't need to watch that. No, it's going to be, like I said in the beginning, the CEO of Palantir talking about how his company's technology is being used on battlefronts happening right now in Ukraine and in Israel, and how that benefits the elite, and how that will then benefit institutions and ostensibly regular people and increase their civil liberties. That's what this is about. Okay. Back to my point. Hold on. I'm gonna turn off the text to chat. I'll just read you guys' quotes, but as the chats are coming in, I can't like continue a thought. Volume off. This is Stickfinity, guys. All right. What else do I need to turn off? I need to turn these off as well. Okay. That wasn't regular information. The general public didn't know that. People who dedicate their lives to uncovering government secrets and creating change and expanding civil liberties brought that into the mainstream knowledge. Now we know that. So he can talk about it and say, oh yeah, this is how technology was developed in the past. Let's hear him say it again.
I think though you have in America, and I would say also in Europe,
This time.
It's
I've been public now 26 years, so.
Yeah, no, I think one of the things to remember, like the backdrop of your question, I think is though you have in America, and I would say also in Europe, historically, industrial development and military technology were obviously co-linked. And as a generalization, but more true than not, you developed a product for the military that then was dual functioned and raised the standard of living of the country.
So when he says like dual function, he's saying like, oh, it was used in the military and then used for consumer goods, blah, blah, blah.
And then for lots of reasons, I'll just leave aside for now, that's not the way at least technology was built until now. There's all these defense tech startups and pound.
Okay, that is no longer how military technology is, for the most part, developed. Today, the way we develop military technology is that the government gives the money to the corporations. They say, here you go, Microsoft. Here you go, Palantir. Here you go, Facebook. Here you go, Tesla. Here you go, SpaceX. These are what we understand as corporate subsidies. The government gives literal billions. That's not an exaggeration. That's what they do. They give billions of dollars to the corporations. The corporations then develop new technologies for the government. Okay. In the case of Palantir, or let's use SpaceX because I feel like that's been in the news more. SpaceX gets $20 billion of taxpayer dollars just given to them, and they like to complain about welfare queens and people getting handouts. They just gave Elon Musk $20 billion. Okay. They give the corporation that money. The corporation then develops technologies and weapons for the U.S. military. You have now, but the sort of shift now, the shift is that the companies, the ones that I mentioned, usually have other technologies, or like they serve another purpose, right? Like Tesla, excuse me, I'm still sick. Tesla isn't just making weapons. SpaceX isn't just making weapons. SpaceX makes like space shuttles, and Tesla makes cars, and Microsoft makes like computers and things. They aren't just making weapons for the government. The shift here now is that there are companies whose sole purpose, right, these tech startups who's like Palantir is one of them, whose sole purpose is to make technology and weapons for the government and the military. That is the only reason they exist, because they understand that that is a quick way to get in money. The governments, and this is the case for governments around the world, but the U.S. being the biggest military by far, has the more money to dish out. And so these defense tech startups, they're calling them defense, are popping up more in the U.S. than anywhere else. But these companies, their sole purpose is to create weapons and technology for the U.S. government because they make off with billions of dollars. It just broke in the news that OpenAI is signing a contract with the Pentagon that's going to allow them to spy on U.S. citizens. That's just what's happening. That's just what's happening. Look it up. Take the phone you're on right now. Look it up. Okay. Let's continue to listen to his spiel.
Palantir, but it was that you had this thing where you were going to create something that had to work under the harshest conditions. That was.
So now he's going to get into like some technical, but that's in all social media, Right. Okay. So great point, Keontae. Great point. Isn't the government already, or aren't these companies already spying on us through all of these apps, through TikTok right now, right? Yes, they are. But typically they use this data to better market things to us, better sell things to us, keep us hooked on these apps, keep us coming back, improving their algorithms so that we're sort of almost addicted to these platforms so they can make more money, show us more ads, get more revenue, or ad revenue from the people who buy ad space on their platforms. The incident in Austin, Texas, I did not see that. What's up, Max? Okay, the difference here is, let's say the US government wanted data from Facebook, right? The US government would have to like subpoena Facebook to get that data from Facebook. Facebook won't just give the data to the US government. Facebook will at least be like, you got to buy it from me. They typically didn't do that in the past, but that's what they're doing now. That's what these tech companies are doing now. They're like, oh, let's just sell the data to the government. Let's just make a tech company that will just give the data to the government. They would keep the data for themselves and sell it to their advertisers. That was the dynamic thus far. Now they're like, oh, the government wants this data and they're willing to pay top dollar for it? Sure. These tech companies are sprouting up for the sole purpose of collecting that data. Whereas before, they were sprouting up to make an app to get your attention, to sell you stuff, to make money. And develop surveillance technology for the government. But like, that was kind of like we like do that on the side too, but like, this is the way where we really make the money. No, now it's just all for the government. It's all for the government. Okay, let's keep listening to the CEO of Palantir.
Presumably significantly better than anyone else's, to the point where it would give you a more than a slight advantage on a battlefield, especially if combined with your way of fighting. And you saw this. There was a very famous good that they just said, well, we'll decide on the back, are kind of very.
He like goes through historical examples of these countries developing military technology and how that benefited their sort of economic progress.
Successful. And I spent most of my adult life in Europe and I'm very pro-European, but I think any honest assessment is that's not gone very well. You built things that could be used in adverse conditions, so rough, dirty, morally gray conditions. So how do you change the morality to fit with how we fight in the West is also a big vector. So the morality is difficult. The conditions.
How do you change the morality to fit with the way we fight? How do you change morality? That's a crazy thing to say. All he's saying there is like, how do you reframe these things so that it is more palatable to the general public? How do we convince the general public that the horrific things that we're doing is okay and they shouldn't like revolt because we're doing these things? That's all he's saying when he says, how do you change the morality with the way you fight in the West? Right? But like these people are PR trained. These people are PR trained. And so they speak in such a way as to obfuscate the meaning of what they're saying. But the others who are also PR trained in this way, the people they're actually speaking to, because these forums are not for us, they're also trained in that way. And so they hear it when he says it. They're like, oh yeah, we're going to reframe this so the peasants and serfs don't throw a fit when we go do another genocide.
Under which you use the technology are difficult in software context. You're not directly connected to the network. In many cases, you have constraints under which you have to fight, even though that's not the optimal way to fight. And you have.
He's going to go through some technical lingo about the considerations of using tech in these war places. We don't really care about that.
With the banality that I think until very, very recently, all kind of adversaries of broadly defined the West assumed that investments in software-based defense were some kind of crazy thing Americans do for marketing. Get rich, company blows up, you're on your beach in the Bahamas, but shareholders are happy and it's gone kind of thing. And what you've seen, so first of all, you could say, well, that's changed. But germane to your question, the learning process in building, how do you build this for sovereign governments, is also a learning process for how do they adopt these technologies. So it's not just the technology, because if you're building a tank, like the British and then the French and then the Germans kind of optimized tank technology, it's easy to see how you would deploy it. But how do you deploy a system that's primary value is organizing parts on the battlefield without seeing the parts on the battlefield and seeing, does it work? A lot of the value, interestingly, people always assume the value is from the default rigor of the enterprise has significant holes in it. So the battle you will hear in fighting, and one of the huge advantages America has is just for better or worse. I, believe it or not, think mostly for worse. I was always against interventions. I'm not a neocon. We had just all this experience on the battlefield, so you could see what worked and what didn't work. But pulling it back to so the first thing that sovereign nations really struggle with is.
I should have timestamped this so I could more easily go to the particular parts that I wanted to. I haven't. We're still learning how to do this more efficiently, chat.
Can I identify which tech is better, objectively? Can I even rate? Actually, let me reframe it.
Yeah.
You have to know where you are to make up for the fact that half your enterprise doesn't even work on the battlefield. It does work in a lab on a PowerPoint only built by country.
It doesn't work because of machinery or humans.
Because the conditions of a battlefield are rough
variable
and
and
ageist,
yeah.
and like, for example, like the modern, if you just take Ukraine as an example, just to make it empirical, everyone reads this.
So I'm glad he brought up Ukraine. This is one of the places I intended to stop. Okay, let's understand Ukraine. There's a clip, or not a clip. I'm not sure if anyone clipped it because no one cares. But if you guys are familiar with Thomas Massie, he's a U.S. congressman, and there's this comedian / podcast host named what's his name? Theo Von. Thomas Massie went on Theo Von's podcast, and they talked about everything under the sun. There's this one kind of 30-second snippet where Thomas Massie gives away the game and explicitly says that we put in power Zelensky in Ukraine. We fomented conflict to create a revolutionary type situation, funded that insurgency. We did regime change in Ukraine to create a situation where we had just cause to invite Ukraine into NATO, which would then give us reason to put military bases on the borders of Russia, because Ukraine borders Russia. Okay. And we knew this would start a conflict. No way the Russians were going for this. Well, here's a perfect opportunity to test trial new technologies. Palantir has been funded by the U.S. government since their existence. That's why they came into existence, to develop tech for the U.S. government. Well, if I'm developing technology for war, I need to test this technology. What better means of testing this technology for war than a war zone? Well, there are not really wars going on that we're backing, and we're not just going to give our experimental technology to our enemies. Well, what if we created a vassal state that was indebted to us, and we virtually controlled, and we let them trial particular technologies? Look no further than Ukraine. What's up, Dylan? Look no further than Ukraine. He's going to talk about that right here. Is that how the Ukrainian and Russian conflict was framed in the American media? No, but that is what's going on. The U.S. fomented that conflict. They replaced the leader of Ukraine, Putin, Zelensky, only not even 1 minute, but I'm getting sent home, bro. I'll be back in chat soon. You're getting sent home. All right, bro. Let us know what's going on, man. I hope you're okay, bro. I hope you're okay. Let us know what's going on, man. Jesus Christ. I hope you're okay, bro. That's not how we talk about it in the media. We don't talk about it we don't talk about it how it is. The U.S. fomented that conflict. They put in Zelensky. They orchestrated the whole trying to invite Ukraine into NATO to create a war situation so we could test our technology and also bleed Russia of some of its resources. Okay. Great situation. Let's hear the CEO of Palantir talk about how those trials went in Ukraine.
Like, okay, well, how hard could it be to move a drone from A to B? Like the modern, if you just take Ukraine as an example, just to make it empirical, as everyone like reads this and like, okay, well, how hard could it be to move a drone from A to B? Well, actually, first of all, you're going to need to know where you want to put the drone. That's going to require synchronizing all your data. You're going to need to do that without transferring that data to your adversary, which means you're going to have to know every single person who touched it. You're going to have to obfuscate it to the final thing. Then you're going to want to do it presumably either within the accordance of your strategy or with your ethics. So where does it not go? You're going to want to be able to correlate it. Do you want to put the drone on your asset? Only 2 people in Ukraine may know that one of the generals is your asset. You can't tell people that's your asset. How do you make it look like to your soldiers that you actually were taking people out and you just missed your asset? Then the war advances.
So this one is like he's like getting into like the questions that come up that they have to technologically solve for. But I think removed from the technological requirements there for what they're trying to do, listen to the rhetoric. It's all a matter of information control. It's all a matter of information control. This is what I've been saying, Chad. If you pay attention, they just fucking tell you exactly what they're doing. But no one pays attention. No one pays attention. They just, instead they're going to go watch fucking these like churches of ideology, your Fox News and CNN and MSNBC, and it's just corporate media feeding you propaganda. No one's paying attention. He's telling you, he's like, yeah, we only engage in deception. We're like, I mean, we want to do this thing, but we can't let people know that's what we're trying to do. So we have to figure out a way to keep it under wraps and mislead the enemy. And folks might say, well, yeah, but he's talking about it in terms of a war zone. They use these strategies everywhere, bro. Like, come on. No one can be that naive. They use these strategy everywhere is because it's effective. They don't only engage in deception in war zones. Okay.
So the Russians, which are they're often very underestimated for reasons I don't understand, but like they're mathematically arguably the best in the world, and things they may not have in the beginning, they can kind of cobble together. And so they began jamming electronics. So now you have a completely different problem, but presumably your enterprise has to be the same or developed, because now it's not a question of going from A to B, it's a question of going through a completely jammed environment where you have no connectivity.
What happens when a government has technology such that it can know where every single person is, regardless of any jamming infrastructure, regardless of like the worst possible conditions, rain, hail, thunderstorm, tons of noise, visual, obscurities, like no matter what the adverse situation is, this government can know exactly where you are at any time and send a drone to you. You know, that might sound great if you're a soldier and all that, but if you're a citizen in a country that has that capacity, and you know your country has, beyond the shadow of a doubt, used these technologies on its own people, what Where, like, what is that? What? I don't even like. You should be concerned about that. You should think about that. You should figure out how you're gonna protect yourself in case one day, and it's not to like buy guns and be like, yeah, the government isn't gonna come be tyrannical to me. I have my AR-15. Your AR-15 is not stopping the U.S. military, brother. It's not stopping the U.S. military. I don't know who you think you are. It's not doing it. All these Second Amendment nut jobs are just that.
While actually collecting data while you go through that environment. And every one of those things is like a dynamic challenge, none of which were foreseen even before the Ukraine. And every single battle zone in the world has a, by the way, the other thing is.
So Ukraine is just giving their military battle data to Palantir. They're just giving it to Palantir. Why would they do that? Out of the goodness of their heart? No, obviously not. It's because Ukraine is dependent on the U.S. We give them billions of dollars. Why? Out of the goodness of our heart? Because we need to stop the Russian threat. No. Because we created a mercenary state within them and we sent them to war to test these technologies.
Then people fight differently. So like if
we don't care how many Ukrainians die as a result of that. Of course not. We kill people on a daily basis.
you look at the big battlefields, I'm sure some people love our work here and some people hate it. By the way, we welcome all opinions at Palantir. Even inside Palantir, we have people who love our work and people who are unhappy with the work. We welcome all.
That's a spirit of dialogue.
It's a spirit of dialogue with a somewhat of a leader. But, you know, if you look at, you know, how, you know, when the Ukrainians, it's a small team of people and very courageous soldiers that are very technical. They have highly technical people that get built on top of our product, things that we don't understand and proprietary ways of using the product. In Israel, they.
This is the clip. This is him. He's giving away the game. He's just saying it.
They have highly technical. How, you know, when the Ukrainians, it's a small team of people and very courageous soldiers that are very technical. They have highly technical people that get built on top of our product, things that we don't understand and proprietary ways of using the product. In Israel, they, according to rumors, use their intelligence. So most people fight military to military.
The Ukrainians are building upon the Palantir or Palantir software. Well, what? Isn't this just like a data company in the U.S.? No. They're a high technology military company. And they created a situation to test that technology in Ukraine. Thousands of people have died as a result of it. Thousands of Russians, Ukrainians, people who like immigrated there, like thousands of people have died to improve Palantir's AI, to improve Palantir's technology for the US government. And so you won't like hear these things out on the news. You won't read it in the publications. But sometimes there are times where they say it. You can only know if you've improved your ability to discern such that when they say you actually hear it and you understand it, and then you have to know where to look. But it's like two people in here and some on Twitch and YouTube and Kick. It's like 6 people across like 4 platforms who care enough to listen. And that's not like a me thing. That's on the very channel. This was open to the whole world. No one watched it. The news didn't cover it. Everyone watched the people throw the ball around, though. Everyone watched that. And that's the point. Like, guys, I'm telling you, I love sports. But understand the purpose they serve. They can serve a different purpose, but the purpose they serve is distraction. It's distraction. That's just what it is. That's not me dogging on sports. That's just the purpose. That's the purpose they've served since their inception in the ancient times. That's why understanding history is important, because if you understand why this thing was created, it might inform your understanding of how it operates contemporarily, right now, today.
This was intelligence in Iran, from what I can tell from the papers.
Let's go back there.
They, according to highly technical people that get built on top of our product, things that we don't understand and proprietary ways of using the product. In Israel, they, according to rumors, use their intelligence. So most people fight military to military. This was intelligence in Iran, from what I can tell from the papers.
Israel is using Palantir, or I keep saying Palantir and wanting to say Palestinian, Palantir tech in Iran. They're using, and guys, I know we're at war with Iran right now, so you might think that's obvious. This was a month ago. We weren't supposed to be at war with Iran a month ago. Israel wasn't supposed to be spying on Iran a month ago. But of course they were, because this thing wasn't a fucking whim. It wasn't a whim. They didn't just wake up one day and say, I think we're going to go to war with Iran. No, they've been playing this for years. The past administration has been playing in this for years. This isn't a whim. This isn't even like a result of the Trump administration. It's the U.S. elites. They've been planning this for years.
And then in America, you just have massive forces that no other country has, but they had to be integrated. And the integration capacity, so every one of those things is different.
Sure.
And so the twofold role of enterprise software on a battlefield is, one, to make sure all the underlying things actually works, and then two, to raise the level to a level no one else has in the world.
Let me translate this now. I mean, there's so much technology that was created from defense, whether it was the internet, GPS. How do you envision this translating from defense and military?
So there are tons more, but the ones that we know about is the internet and GPS, right? That's what they've sort of kind of propped up in the mainstream zeitgeist. Like, oh, the internet and GPS. There are tons of others we don't talk about, isn't necessarily within the mainstream conversation. What? I don't even know about them. I haven't taken the time to look into it, but like, it can't be that it was only the internet. I mean, microwaves too, but like the cell phone. There are tons of others. But we know these two, and that helps to shape the conversation. That helps to shape the narrative. Every time you hear a simple, I took this one class that was literally about simple. The whole point of the class was to tell us to be wary of simple stories. That's what this lady who got a doctorate in education and information, she created a class to just convey this to us. Be wary of simple stories. When you hear a story about something and it's just something that's easily summed up, especially if that story is accepted by the entirety of the population, something is up.
To corporations, to businesses.
It wasn't just simple. It was single stories, right? Like, there's one perspective on this. Beware of single stories.
To society.
Well, first of all, the fact that it's basically a purely raw, naked environment means that you actually know the ground truth of what could work, independent of what enterprises think can work. And the general is the thing.
He's talking about how Ukraine is sort of ground zero for their test trials. This should be like this. This man should be at The Hague on trial. No, he's just the World Economic Forum. You know, like, Ukraine is a great environment to test our war technology. This is insane.
I think at a high level, it's almost one-to-one translatable. But precisely because, as just to take enterprises in general, not all enterprises, tend to want to, over time, become like every other enterprise. So if you take five, A enterprise and B enterprise and C enterprise, they're in the same market. Their tech infrastructure is trying to make them into the same enterprise. They have the same org chart.
Sure.
They have presumably roughly the same, they don't have the same data infrastructure. And what you learn on the battlefield is that, and in life is, that's not particularly valuable. What is very valuable is an enterprise can do something no enterprise in the world can do. And so that is the goal of every single military intelligence service. In fact, all these intelligence services and militaries have their own specialization. And so when we went to commerce, like what we're saying is, how can we make your insurance company, the way you underwrite, how can we make that to your tribal?
So now Palantir has taken the data from all of the wars that Israel has waged against Lebanon, against the Palestinians, against Iran, the Ukrainian conflict, and now they're taking this into the market to further enrich themselves.
Knowledge about underwriting. How can we transform this to knowledge everyone has to a knowledge only you have and with efficiencies that no one else has? So as an example, on the battlefield, one of the most important issues is how do you acquire data, process it, and then put it into a framework where it can be actioned, either from an intelligence perspective. Yeah. So just obviously, what does a business do? In the end of the day, what is a business doing? I mean, it is, so for example, especially in anything underwriting, banking, hospital intakes.
It's information.
It's information. It's sorting the information in a way that you have a distinct advantage over other people who are similarly situated, and that advantage can't be eviscerated easily. And so de facto, for what you're doing on the battlefield with our products, without getting, I'm happy to, is like what you're doing with Ontology and Foundry, in some cases on the battlefield, but definitely in like commercial organizations across the world, but especially in America, is when you approach the underwriter or the hospital, we power tons and tons of hospitals.
Right.
They have an intake problem. They all have an intake problem. They all have a shortage of doctors and nurses. They are working in a low margin environment. But every single one has a different way of processing their patients according to what their specialty is and the kind of patients they don't do well with, and how do you manage that? And so the intake flow and into your enterprise in a way that you can actually process these things 10, 15 times faster than you could before. And then the other—
That saves lives then.
It saves a lot of lives. It also, interestingly, because you're processing the LLM in an ontology, you have a structure. Despite what people may want to believe, it also bolsters civil liberties, because now you can say, well, I mean, just simple questions.
This is the other
part. You can actually process these things 10, 15 times faster than you could before. It's a different way of processing their patients.
Yeah, I wanted to talk
according
about
to what their specialty is and the kind of patients they don't do well with, and how do you manage that? And so the intake flow and into your enterprise in a way that you can actually process these things 10, 15 times faster than you could before. And then the other—
That saves lives then.
It saves a lot of lives. It also, interestingly, because you're processing the LLM in an ontology, you have a structure. Despite what people may want to believe, it also bolsters civil liberties, because now you can say, well, I mean, just simple questions. Was someone processed based on economic considerations, or were they processed based on their background? Like, those things are impossible.
What's up, Keith? So this argument that he's making is basically saying, well, because now we have these algorithms and we have this structure, we can weed out bias. We can see exactly how the system is processing information. And because we have that structure, and we're able to weed out bias, it's going to increase people's civil liberties. Their backgrounds won't be taken into consideration. Only economic considerations will be taken into account. That is nonsense, nor is it possible. Like, it's nonsense because it's not possible. And I cannot for a second believe this person doesn't understand that. Why is it not possible, the claims he just made? Let's hear him make it again.
As you're processing the LLM in an ontology, you have a structure. Despite what people may want to believe, it also bolsters civil liberties, because now you can say, well, I mean, just simple questions. Was someone processed based on economic considerations, or were they processed based on their background? Like, those things are impossible to say unless you have, like, there's a huge civil liberties betterment side of this that typically people don't believe we care about, but it's actually exactly the opposite. We do care, and, showing is caring. It's like we.
Okay. Why is it not possible what he's saying? There are two, how we process information, how we have processed information are in a couple ways. One, we store, we gather, we organize, and we store, and then human beings look and make sense of the data. What we're moving to is we gather, organize, store, and AIs make sense of the data. Now, he's claiming that because the AIs are making sense of the data and there's no human being looking at this data to make sense of it, the AI isn't biased, so there won't be any bias. We know this is false. We know AIs are biased, and they cannot be anything but biased. How do we know this? Well, how do AIs get trained? They get trained from the information that we have online. That information is biased. The people who create the algorithms, the people who tell the AIs what to look for and what to prioritize, they themselves are biased. They create the technology for a particular purpose. That purpose is a bias. There is no world in which there is any artificial intelligence that doesn't have bias. So that's just wrong on its face, but no one's going to challenge that in this space, of course. And so this idea that it's going to increase civil liberties because the system won't take into account things that have to do with people's backgrounds is nonsense. One, there is no way, and it's only going to take in economic considerations. There is no idea of economics that is that's wholly removed from people's backgrounds. Economic is a part of the political system, and it deals in people's backgrounds. So this idea that it's only going to be economic considerations, well, part of my background is my economic status. Is it not going to consider that? It must. That's how, and he goes on to talk about this will help us know. We're going off topic, but what was your major? My major was sociology and political science. Well, the major was sociology. The focus was leadership and community development. My minors were political science and social justice. That's it right there. That was my college education journey. Blah blah blah. Yeah, it's not possible. It's not possible to remove bias from data. There's no such thing as purely economic considerations as removed from our backgrounds and our various identities. And this idea that what the military tech company, this idea that part of their considerations is increasing civil liberties. I mean, you would have to be a degree of propagandized and naive that is astronomical to for a second believe what just came out of that man's mouth. He doesn't believe it. The guy sitting across from him doesn't believe it. They want you to believe it because they want you to consent to their development of this technology. They want you to not resist it. They want you to comply, or better yet, remain apathetic. Don't care, don't watch it. And they achieve that as virtually nobody watched it. It's sitting at 39K views. It's been out for a month now. And this is one of the biggest military technology, high technology companies in the world at that exists in the most powerful empire the world has ever seen, talking about how they use said technology, how they're currently using it and what they plan to do with it, and no one paid attention to it. But millions of people will watch the people throw the ball around.
We can granularly show why someone came in, why they were taken, why they were rejected, and we can do it in a way that makes business sense for the business itself. And then it leads to safety efficiencies.
And probably brings down costs.
Well, if you want to do a shorter kind of financial version, you basically, in the past, to do what we can do in the full light of a public market, you need to take the company private. So, and then you would take out the cost structure, and you probably resell it. Well, now you can take out the cost structure, make the workers more important, so the actual workers, not the fat kind of in the middle, and then you can change the way they go to market. So the
But in
top
hospitals, you can process this information faster. Presumably, you'll have
much
better,
faster,
healthier
and then the
outcomes.
nurses, the nurses and doctors are also happier. And yeah,
So you
Can these technologies be used to improve efficiency in our lives? Yes. Is that their purpose? No. Their purpose is coalescing power for the elites. It's almost like the Roman Empire: keep the citizens entertained and content so they stay blind. Yes, exactly. We are the Third Reich. I did a stream about this. We are the third iteration of the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire was the first, or like the third sort of modern global empire. The Roman Empire was the first. The second, and the Roman Empire wasn't really global. They kind of touched like most parts of the world, but they didn't like control it all. I guess you can say there wasn't another empire at the time but then the Mongols also did the same thing, but we don't think about the Mongols the way that we think about the Romans. And I think part of the reason we don't is because the influence of the Mongols doesn't, like, their institutions do not still dictate how we do political life, whereas the Romans institutions still do. It was the Romans the first, the British Empire the second, the U.S. Empire the third. And even in the way our political system is structured within the executive system mirrors the imperial system of Rome, like almost to a T. And then you have the Senate, which is basically like the Roman Senate, but add in the Congress. And that comes directly from the British Empire, and the British Empire got it directly from the Roman Empire. In Great Britain, it's the House of Lords, that's their Senate. And then you have the House of Commons.
You suggested that for companies to rapidly adopt it, they have to, the best way to do it is go in private, then they could restructure, but
no, what I'm suggesting is they don't have to do that anymore.
they don't have to do that. But so what is the basic hindrance?
What do you think the play is, Keontae? I'm going to turn back on text to chat. We're going to move on from this clip. They don't necessarily have to keep you blind. They have to keep you sort of unable to make sense of what's going on and distracted. But what do you think the
Deontay
play is?
Gatewood
I'm
says
curious.
Show us everything and spin it politically. Yes, still blinding, but it works for them.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Just like throw everything at you. And like, do not equip you with the tools to be able to make sense of it, and make it impossible to even make sense of it, even if you had those tools, because you can't process everything. Especially none of those things are traumatic, right? So you bomb a school full of little girls and you just blast that into the airwaves. Israel just bombed all girls Elementary school, boom. Israel just bombed a camp full of 1,000 kids. The U.S. just sent a bomb over there, killed a bunch of people, shot a lady in the face. And you're just constantly flooded with traumatic information that no human being could possibly process. And you want help to do that? Well, look no further. We got some news for you. We got some corporate propaganda news for you. Go ahead, watch that. There's this clip I saved a long time ago. Let me see if I can find it. I think it's one of the best examples of how U.S. media is just kind of an absolute, I don't even know what to call it. Like a shit show doesn't even begin to explain it. Saved videos, YouTube and their files, playlist. Where is it? Is it in here? Peter Piper need to shut up. No.
Keontae Gatewood
No.
says exactly, bro, exactly. But everyone is fed it differently. I can't talk to much, bro, cause I am military, but Keontae Gatewood
okay,
says I
heard
have
you.
a lot of options.
Here's a good one. Okay, let's watch this. Speaking of U.S. corporate media.
Keontae Gatewood says opinions, I mean.
Mm-hmm. One is kind of built for this setup, but I don't have a. That's fine. I can just kind of zoom in. Actually, one sec, chat. Oh, is that the cast is showing? All right, let's remove the cast. I want to display capture this bad boy, and then we're gonna cut this up. Took too long for me to start doing this, man. Had to get past all of the discomfort, all of the insecurities, all of the doubt. I won't say they're all gone, but we're here, so in a lot better of a place. All right, so this clip is from the New York Times, and it's titled "An Inside Look at the State of the Union." So the State of the Union is when the president does a speech to kind of brief the country on how things are going and sort of plans for the future. It's a political stunt. It's theater. But if you're a good journalist, you can pull some insight out of that and inform the public. The corporate media institutions do not give a damn about informing the public. They are propaganda machines. Let's see how they inform us in this clip. Now, granted, yes, it's a 2-minute, 30-second clip. There's only so much one can be informed from something like that, but it's not impossible. I mean, there are a lot of creative people using this now, like limited time and space we have on these social media companies to communicate really important things. Let's see how the New York Times did it, and let's see what we learned from this clip.
I was on the House floor during President Trump's State of the Union speech. I'm bunched up in that center aisle, trying to capture some of the little things that people might not be able to see on a live television broadcast. Little details like the Republican gentleman who was wearing a tie with President Trump's face on it. As Trump was entering the House chamber, the Republicans are on their feet, clapping. Democrats in all white with different symbols in protest. As Trump got to the end of the aisle, Representative Al Green happened to hold up a sign. I knew I had to line up the picture where you can see Representative Green and then have President Trump in the foreground to show that this is kind of where American politics is at right now. I think the stakes for President Trump were relatively high. Coming into the State of the Union, his approval rate wasn't as high as it had been. This was a huge platform to lay out his agenda, and there was a lot of anticipation because of the recent Supreme Court ruling about tariffs.
Very unfortunate ruling.
So the justices there were certainly a key focus of mine. Each of them, I would say, was kind of stoic, watching the president give his speech. One of the more energized moments was when he announced that the hockey team was there. Both sides were clapping for Team USA. At one point, President Trump mentioned insider trading.
Members of Congress cannot corruptly profit from using insider information.
That seemed like a moment both sides of the aisle were able to agree on. Then some of the Democrats started to yell, like, well, what about you? You could certainly feel the vibe shift when he started targeting Democrats.
These people are crazy. I'm telling you, they're crazy.
From someone being in there and being on the floor, it felt like he was waiting for a type of...
All right, I'm going to stop here. There's not a lot left. Tell me this is not theater. Tell me this is not theater. What have we learned? What have we learned? The well propagandized will say, well, we learned that you know, the Democrats are not they don't agree with what Trump is doing, and we learned that they're willing to fight back with their signs and buttons and the hockey team was there. This is nonsense. This is nonsense. This is spectacle. This is spectacle.
Response. That response came when Representative Omar leaned forward and shouted back at the president.
You should be ashamed of yourself.
By the end of the speech, some of the Democrats had enough and left the chamber a bit early. It's no secret that President Trump likes to go as long as he wants. And
this is theater, man. This is nonsense. It's absolute garbage. There's this one clip though that I literally saved in like 2021 before this is like when Biden was president, before I even like got anything to do this show. I saved it because I was like, oh man, is this good? Is this? It was from MSNBC. It was Biden going on a trip to Ukraine. Holy hell, bro. I've never seen something as bad in my whole life. I doubt I'll even be able to find it because it's so damn long ago, but Jesus Christ. Where even would it be? Maybe it'd be on my watch later. Like a million things in there. Play some music while I'm looking for this. Chatty McChat chat. So long ago, man. Maybe I can find it if I just like look it up. Goes on top. Where's the MSNBC one? Wow, I didn't know all these companies covered it. This is even better. It just goes to show how much nonsense this is. Let's watch them all cover it. So that's CBS. Let's look at the Fox coverage of it. Fox, okay. Where's the MSNBC version? Oh yeah, there it is. I've seen this one. Okay, here we go. Oh my God, chat. Oh my God. They think we're stupid and we like prove them right. That's the worst part.
Overnight trip to Kyiv. Secret mission.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. We have seen American presidents quietly slipping into war zones before, but never quite like what we saw today.
Never quite like what we. This is spectacle. It's sensationalism. It's meant to just keep you dazed and confused.
Good evening and thank you for joining us.
Maybe a little jazzed up once in a while.
We have seen American presidents quietly slipping into war zones before, but never quite like what we saw today. Americans waking up to news that
they put on these fucking silly voices. Like, shit's so bad. I can't even get through like 30 seconds of it, bro. This shit's ridiculous. Oh my God. Holy crap. All right, sorry.
We have seen American presidents quietly slipping into war zones before, but never quite like what we saw today. Americans waking up to news that President Biden had arrived in the Ukrainian capital of Kyiv on an unannounced visit cloaked in secrecy that included the president taking a 10-hour train ride across Ukraine, venturing into a country actively at war and where there is no sustained U.S. military presence. The risk underscored by the wail of an air raid siren as the president strolled outside with President Volodymyr Zelensky. The visit coming just before the first anniversary.
This is like all a photo op to make the figurehead of the U.S. look like tough, right? I mean, let's like listen to the excrement they're trying to feed you. Okay. President Biden went on a top secret trip to Ukraine. So top secret that every major news outlet in the United States of America, and one's not even in America, every minor news outlet, everything under the sun was covering it. Everyone knew. It's so top secret that everyone fucking knew. And it's so top secret that he's just strolling in the street. But it's dangerous. It's dangerous. He's in a war zone. No one knew he was going to be there. Brother, if you think for a second that the Ukrainians didn't know he was coming, that the Russians didn't know exactly where he was and what time he was there, you're being had. You're confused. Everyone knew Biden was going to be there. Everyone knew Biden was going. It was a photo op to drum up support for the conflict in Ukraine, which we know the U.S. manufactured to test Palantir technology. Not just for that. That's one of the reasons. To keep Russia in conflict, drain their resources, vilify them, box them in. We've been trying to box them in for decades. We boxed in Iran. If you can't regime change, if you can't go in there and take out their political elite and put in people who will do your bidding, the next best thing is to flank them, surround them with military assets. That's what we're trying to do to Russia, because we can't take out Putin. That's what we have done in Iran. That's why we're so confident this war is going to be short. Why? Because we have military bases encircling their country. We have a mercenary state in Israel right there.
Kyiv was months in the making in coordination with the Secret Service and every level of America's national security agencies. CBS's Nancy Cordes tells us how it all came together.
Sneaking the leader of the free world into an active war zone isn't easy.
We're here to stay.
It took months of secret planning by a handful of officials from the Pentagon, the Secret Service, the intelligence community, and the White House.
It was an incredibly small team.
Amanda Sloat was on that team. She's a top advisor to the president on European affairs.
It was a very close-held operation, and I think everybody wanting to do everything they could to get the president there and back safely.
Here's how they did it. Instead of his usual 747, they put the president on a smaller 757, changing the call sign from Air Force One to Special Air Mission 60. The plane took off from Joint Base Andrews outside D.C. at 4:15 Sunday morning, stopping briefly in Germany.
It's these random ass details, just throwing random slop at you. God. Look at the comments, just a whole ledger of nonsense. All right. Anyway, what violation? You're flagged for misinformation. Oh my God! Here we go again. Repeated violations could result in your live being discontinued. It's literally every day now. It's literally every day. It's just every day now. It's every day now. It's just every day. Just all the time. Right now I'm talking about how this video from I don't even know how long ago at this point. 3 years ago, Biden going to Ukraine and these places covering it as some top secret mission is nonsense, and that everyone knew he was going to be there. It was planned. Russia knew, Ukraine knew. They told them because they're not going to risk the figurehead of the United States being killed. This was all photo op to drum up support for the Ukrainian war that we fomented, manufactured to test Palantir technology and box in Russia. And they said misinformation. Chat, we're going to end this stream because once I get that notification, it's basically donezo. Like, no one's going to see the stream. So we're going to end it here and start a new one. This is how they do it. This is how they suppress. Your live is flagged for misinformation. Yeah, right. Give me a break. Live restricted for some audiences. Reason, misinformation. Fuck off. $28 views. 28 views. 28 views. Chat. 28 views. I was getting like 6,000, 8,000, 10,000, 28 views. 28 views. That's how they do it right there. There you have it, Sponge Boy Me Bob. There you have it, chat. Should I get For Honor for like $2? Assassin's Creed Origin, Unity 3 Remastered. Rainbow Six Vegas. I love this game growing up. Rainbow Six Vegas was so tough. I'm gonna end the stream on Twitch, Twitter, or Twitch, YouTube, and Kick and start